Hey everyone, and welcome back to Stock Explorers. Today we're doing a deep dive into Microvast. They're a U.S. battery maker,
Yeah.
but there's all this geopolitical stuff surrounding them.
Yeah, it's really interesting how they're so tied to China. But trying to make it big in the US, high stakes for sure, especially with electric vehicles being so important.
So how did a company in Texas get so connected to China?
Well, it all goes back to the founder, Yang Wu. He started Microvast back in 2006, and he's been pretty open about the company's strong ties to China.
Okay, so those connections are deep. But when did they start causing problems in the U.S.?
Things really came to a head with that whole Department of Energy grant debacle.
You mean that $200 million grant?
Yeah, that one. It was supposed to help Microvast build a new manufacturing plant in Kentucky. The Biden administration was really pushing for more EV battery production in the U.S., and this grant was part of that push.
So why the DOE back out?
Republican lawmakers weren't happy about it. They raised concerns about giving that much money to a company so closely linked to China.
I can see why that would be a problem.
Yeah, especially Senator John Barrasso. He was really vocal about it.
What did he say exactly?
He actually sent a letter to the energy secretary. He basically accused Microvast's CEO of bragging about their China ties, in Chinese media no less. Barrasso argued that giving them taxpayer money went against the whole point of the grant.
Yes, it was.
To strengthen American manufacturing and supply chains. It was all part of that big infrastructure law back in 2021.
So Barrasso saw this as U.S. dollars potentially going to a company still embedded in China.
Right, even though they have a U.S. headquarters.
Did you compare this to any other government investment mistakes?
Oh, yeah, he brought up Solyndra.
The solar company.
Yeah, that one.
That went bust after getting tons of government loans.
Exactly. He called it Solyndra syndrome.
Oh, wow. So he was basically saying this could be another Solyndra.
Exactly.
Ouch. So how did Microvast respond to all of this?
They said they were surprised by the DOE's decision, emphasized the potential job creation in Kentucky, and their commitment to U.S. expansion.
Sounds like they're trying to walk a fine line. Distance themselves from China, but still grow in the U.S.
It's a tricky situation, trying to win over skeptical lawmakers, secure funding.
Yeah.
And, oh yeah, they've also been dealing with those delisting threats.
Delisting threats.
Yeah, not just one, but two of them.
Wow. What triggered those?
The first one was because of the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, the PCAOB.
What's that?
They're the ones who audit publicly traded companies, and they couldn't inspect Microvast's auditors in China.
Why not?
Because of this law called the Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act, the HFCAA.
What does that do?
Basically, if your auditors can't be inspected by the PCAOB for 3 years, you're off the U.S. stock exchange.
So it's like, show us your books or get out.
Pretty much.
Makes sense. You need transparency with public companies.
Exactly. But that threat seems to have passed for now.
Oh, good. How did they get out of that one?
Late last year, the PCAOB got access to inspect audit firms in China, so they could finally look at Microvast's books. That took care of that delisting risk.
Thank goodness. So what about the second delisting threat?
That one was about their stock price. It went below $1 a share.
Ouch. That's penny stock territory.
Yeah, it's the danger zone for staying listed on the NASDAQ.
Did they recover?
As of January, their market cap is way above that threshold, so they're good for now.
Yeah.
But it shows how vulnerable they are to market swings.
Yeah, it's like they're constantly dodging bullets. Political scrutiny, regulatory hurdles, market volatility.
It's a lot to handle.
And President Trump. And his impact on the EV and battery industry.
Oh, yeah, he's a wild card.
Didn't he slap tariffs on everything?
He did.
How could that affect Microvast?
Well, he's been talking about new tariffs on goods from Canada, Mexico, and China.
Of course.
Those tariffs could really shake things up, especially for companies like Microvast that rely on global supply chains.
So even if they're expanding in the U.S.,
yeah,
they could still get hit if they need parts from China.
Exactly. It makes it even harder for them to build a strong U.S. manufacturing base.
They really are stuck between a rock and a hard place.
You could say that.
So despite all this, they're pushing ahead with expansion plans in the U.S.
They are. They're still moving forward with battery plants in Kentucky and Tennessee.
Wait, didn't the Kentucky plant rely on that DOE grant?
It did.
So what's happening there now?
They've shifted their focus. They're putting their energy into finishing their battery manufacturing facility in Clarksville, Tennessee.
So they're doubling down on Tennessee.
It seems like it.
Are they scrapping the Kentucky plant altogether?
Not entirely. They originally wanted to build a polyaramid separator plant there with that DOE money. But now they're saying they'll concentrate on their core business. and revisit the separator plant later.
So they're adapting.
They have to.
But they still have some major obstacles.
Definitely.
Like getting enough funding to pull off these expansion plans.
Yeah, and convincing policymakers that they're a trustworthy player in the EV game.
That's a tall order. Okay, so let's dig into these expansion plans. What can you tell me about that Tennessee facility?
It's actually been in the works for a while now. They got this existing building in Clarksville, Tennessee, back in 2021, and started fixing it up for battery production. They were hoping to have it running by late 2023.
Okay, so they had a plan. But I'm guessing the DOE grant being revoked messed things up.
Oh, yeah. It caused a lot of problems. Their SEC filings show they had some money troubles. Investors don't like it when a company loses funding like that, especially with all the political stuff going on.
So how much did this delay the Tennessee project?
It slowed things down a lot. Construction was delayed, and some parts of the project were put on hold. It pushed back the timeline and increased the cost.
It's just one problem after another for Microvast. So where do things stand with the Tennessee plant now?
They still want to finish it, but they need to find the money to do it. They've said that the money from their SPAC merger isn't enough to cover both the Clarksville expansion and their daily expenses.
So their future depends on finding more cash. What are they saying about the plant's capacity and its role in their U.S. strategy?
Well, once it's fully equipped, the Clarksville facility will be able to produce up to 4 gigawatt hours of batteries. But the first phase, phase 1A, will focus on 2 gigawatt hours, specifically for their 53.5 amp hour cell technology.
Interesting. So they're being strategic about which battery tech they're focusing on. Who are they planning to sell these batteries to?
Mainly U.S. customers. It makes sense with the push for American-made batteries, especially with those incentives from the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah, made in America is a big deal these days. But are there any downsides to only focusing on the U.S. market?
There is one. One of their SEC filings mentions that until the Clarksville Phase 1A expansion is done, they won't be able to get those tax credits from the IRA.
Oh, so it's a waiting game.
Kind of.
They're betting on the U.S. electric vehicle market.
But they're missing out on benefits for now.
Are there any plans for expansion beyond Tennessee?
There might be. The Tennessee site has space for another building, which could double their capacity. The Clarksville location could end up producing 8 gigawatt hours of batteries.
Wow, that's a huge investment. What about their overall manufacturing goals?
Right now, their global manufacturing capacity is around 5 gigawatt hours. The Clarksville expansion would add another 2 gigawatt hours. But get this, they've said they want to reach 7 gigawatt hours of capacity by the end of 2024 and 11 gigawatt hours by 2026.
Those are some ambitious goals. Especially with everything else going on, it seems like they're really determined to be a big player in the U.S. market. But what makes Microvast's batteries special?
They're all about innovation. They're known for developing batteries that offer ultra-fast charging, long lifespan, high energy density, and great safety.
Okay, break that down for me. What's so special about their ultra-fast charging?
Think about electric commercial vehicles. They need to be on the road all the time. Microvast's batteries can charge incredibly fast, like 10 to 30 minutes from almost empty to almost full.
Wow, that's fast. How does that compare to other companies?
Some of their competitors take hours to charge, even overnight. This speed is a game changer for industries where downtime is a problem, like logistics, warehousing, public transportation.
It's a big difference. So what about this longer lifespan?
They say their batteries can last for the entire life of a commercial vehicle. Imagine not having to replace the battery for 10 years or more. That's a huge cost saving.
So they're durable. How do they do that?
They use cutting-edge battery chemistry and materials, like lithium titanate oxide, or LTO, as the anode material. It might mean slightly less range, but it makes them safer, allows for faster charging, and gives them a really long life cycle.
There's so much happening in the battery world. What about safety? We've all heard those stories about EV batteries catching fire.
Yeah, that's a big concern. But Microvast has a special electrolyte formula that reduces the risk of fires. In some cases, it eliminates the risk entirely.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Especially with batteries getting more powerful.
Right. Higher energy density can sometimes mean more risk of overheating.
You mentioned high energy density. What's that all about?
It's about how much power you can fit into a small space. It's really important for EVs because it affects how far they can go on a single charge.
So the higher the energy density, the longer the driving range.
Exactly.
How do Microvast batteries compare?
They're not the highest on the market, but they're good for things like delivery vans, where range is really important.
So they're finding their niche.
They are?
Are they just selling batteries? Or do they offer more?
They want to be more than just a battery supplier. They want to offer complete electric vehicle solutions, so they also provide a battery management system. or BMS.
What's special about their BMS technology?
It's their own state-of-the-art system. It's like the brain of their batteries. It monitors and manages performance. And their latest BMS for commercial vehicles meets all the safety and cybersecurity standards.
So it's a complete package.
Yeah, they're making sure their batteries work seamlessly with the vehicles.
Do they offer support after the sale?
Yes, they do. They know that customer satisfaction is important. They have service teams, predictive software, and diagnostic tools to keep an eye on their batteries and provide support.
It sounds like a whole ecosystem.
It is.
But how are they actually doing as a business? Are they making money? Yeah, that's the big question.
Well, they've been growing.
Okay, so they're growing. But are they profitable?
Not yet. They're still reporting net losses, which isn't unusual for a company in a growth phase, especially one that's investing so much in R&D and expansion.
I guess that makes sense. But losing money always worries investors. What's their explanation for these losses?
They mention a few things. Costs associated with expansion plans, higher R&D spending, and even losses from selling off some of their property and equipment.
Selling off assets. That sounds a little bit concerning.
It could be that they just needed to get rid of some things that were outdated or not needed anymore as they changed their manufacturing strategy.
Okay, so like spring cleaning.
Exactly.
But for a big company, still investors want to see profits eventually.
Of course. Sustainable profits are crucial for long-term success. But right now, their focus is on growth, grabbing market share, becoming a leader in the EV battery space.
It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's talk about innovation. What are they doing in terms of R&D?
They're really focused on improving battery materials. One example is their polyaramid separator. It's supposed to be much more heat-resistant than traditional separators.
Heat-resistant separators. Why is that so important?
Overheating is a major safety issue with lithium-ion batteries. If a battery gets too hot, it can lead to thermal runaway, which can cause fires or even explosions.
Well, that's scary.
It is. So improving heat resistance is really important.
So what's so special about this polyaramid separator?
Polyamide is a super strong, heat-resistant fiber. It's similar to Kevlar, the stuff they use in bulletproof vests.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
They figured out how to make a separator out of it. That works in lithium-ion batteries.
So they're using bulletproof technology to make batteries safer.
Kind of.
What other materials are they working on?
They're also looking at advanced cathode materials. Back in 2017, they licensed a cathode technology from Argonne National Labs. It's called FCG. Yeah, it stands for Full Concentration Gradient. It's designed to improve energy density and safety. And Microvast says their way of making FCG cathodes is very cost-effective.
So safer and cheaper batteries.
That's the goal.
What else?
They're also trying to reduce or eliminate cobalt from their cathodes.
Why is cobalt a problem?
It's expensive, and there are ethical concerns about how it's sourced. Most of it comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where there are issues with human rights and environmental damage.
So getting rid of cobalt would be a good thing.
For sure. It would make their batteries cheaper and more sustainable.
Okay, so let's step back and look at the big picture. What are the biggest risks for Microvast?
Funding is a big one. Can they get enough money to do all of this? Especially without that DOE grant. Building factories and ramping up production is expensive.
And the political climate isn't helping.
Right. And then there's the competition. The battery industry is very competitive. They're going up against some huge companies with lots of resources.
Companies like CATL and LG Energy Solutions.
Oh, yeah, those guys.
So what does Microvast have going for them?
They're focusing on their specialized battery chemistries, their fast charging capabilities, and the long lifespan of their batteries. They think this gives them an advantage in certain areas, like electric buses, commercial vehicles, and some specialty applications.
It's a niche strategy.
But it could work. But there's still a lot that could go wrong. They've even said in their SEC filings that they rely on a limited number of suppliers for key materials and components.
So supply chain issues could be a problem.
Definitely. Any disruptions could cause delays and increase costs. And as the market gets more competitive, they might have to lower their prices, which would hurt their profits.
It's a tough situation.
It is. They need to find a way to keep costs down, maintain quality, and keep innovating.
All while dealing with politics and trade policies.
It's a lot to juggle.
Well, it's been fascinating learning about Microvast. It's a really interesting story.
Sure, that is.
A story about innovation, competition, and globalization.
And it's not over yet.
What do you think? Can Microvast overcome these challenges and become a major player in the EV battery market? Let us know your thoughts. That's it for our deep dive into Microvast. Be sure to subscribe to Stock Explorers for more. Until next time, keep exploring.